Not likely. Yikes, 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 and let me guess, you have a great personality.
Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. If you guys are new to the channel, do me a favor, drop a like, subscribe, welcome everybody. On today's video, we're gonna go ahead and change out the rear track bar on this Jeep Commander. Now this process is the same for the Jeep Commander XK and the Jeep Grand Cherokee WK. They use the exact same suspension setup, so it should be the same thing. I decided to make it as simple as only 2 bolts to remove this track bar. One on this side, one on this side. So you got a bolt and nut here and a bolted nut here. They're both gonna be 21 millimeters. All right guys, if you take a look over here, this is the passenger rear. You got a bolt and nut right here. It's pretty simple to get to this one. 21 millimeters for the nut and the bolt. And then the track bar goes all the way across on the vehicle to this side. And once again, it's easy to remove the nuts here. Now the only issue is the bolt is gonna travel a little into the coil spring right here. Make sure you have enough clearance. You should be able to. If not, you might drop the axle a little bit down to stretch this up. But it's pretty simple. Now, I went ahead and I jacked up the vehicle. I got the whole body of the vehicle resting on that jack stand, and then I got 2 other jack stands holding the axle itself. That just in case if I need to lower or raise the axle, I can do it safely without worrying about the body of the vehicle dropping and stuff like that. Now, I recommend use 2 jack stands for the solid axle and also the jack, put it in between. You want to make sure that the axle is stationary and is going to stay in place when you move the track bar. Because the moment you remove it, the axle tends to flex a little this way, so it might be difficult snaking the bolt back into the hole. So some advice is always use jack stands and a jack on the solid axle to keep it in place as much as possible. The body of the vehicle is resting on these jack stands, so the body's not going to move anywhere. So that being said, let me go ahead and remove those bolts. Alright guys, so this nut and bolt came out perfectly fine on this side, and the track bar just dropped. And then I went to the other side, and I was able to snake out the bolt on that side perfectly fine as well. So this is the bolt right here. It basically goes into this hole right here. You would need to drop the axle pretty damn low in order for this bolt to come out in between the coil here. But it is doable. So now I got it out, and surprisingly these nut and bolts are perfectly fine. They're not eat up or chewed up by the rust, and it came out pretty quick. I use a air impact, a really cheap one, so I think it is manageable if you use a regular ratchet or breaker bar. This vehicle is a 14-year-old vehicle, and the nut came out perfectly fine, so I think you should be able to handle this on your own. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and snake this track bar out of the vehicle. All right, now we should be able to just remove it from the passenger side. It's way easier. Take it out. All right guys, the old track bar is out. If you take a look at it, the bushing is not that bad, but it is pretty soft, and you can move this around a little too easy. Now, in all honesty, this track bar is not that bad. The bushing is not that worn out or shot yet. I mean, it is getting there, but I could have gone, I guess, another year with this, another 2 years with this. But the reason why I decided to replace it, it was because I was ordering a lot of parts for the front suspension, and I decided, hey, this is cheap and it's on the it's coming from the same warehouse, why not order it? This honestly cost me about 30 bucks, which is pretty damn cheap, so I decided to get it now before prices change. And the other reason why I decided to replace this is because I noticed these, I'm not sure what the heck these are, weights or I don't know, reinforcement bars, but it looks like the welds broke off, so these are separating. So that's the reason why I decided to go with a new one. Once again, super cheap, and they're exactly identical. Everything is exactly the same. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace it with a new one. Honestly, it took me about 5 minutes less. It took me more time jacking up the vehicle than it was removing the track bar. So I'm gonna go ahead and install the new one. But before I do that, knowing me, I'm just gonna go ahead and clean up any rust, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and spray it with some rust reformer on both ends. All right guys, so I went ahead and I rust proofed the mount. So now we're gonna go ahead and snake this track bar back in. We're gonna go by the passenger side as we took it out and kind of maneuver it into that hole right there. All right, there we go. I'm just gonna remove that light bar I have there for support. All right, now when it comes to this type of repairs, you should be able to simply put a nut and bolt on one side easily without maneuvering or moving anything around. The other side will always be the hardest part because, as I mentioned, the track bar main purpose is to keep the axle centered and keep it from flexing from side to side. So that being said, the moment you take it out, the body and the axle can either move left or right slightly. So aligning the holes is going to be hard for the track bar. But I'll show you a trick if I have that issue. So first we're going to do this side. We're just going to put the nut and bolt. We're not going to tighten it up yet. We're just going to put it in. All right, so we're just going to leave it like that for a moment. Now we're going to go to the other side and see if we're able to put the nut and bolt through. All right, guys, if you notice, you see how the sleeve and this hole is not matching. What we could do is take a screwdriver and wedge it in there and see if we can pry it so it can match, and then we can slip in the bolt. That's one way of doing it. Some people use like ratchet straps so they can like push the axle towards this way. There's different ways you can do it. I'm just gonna stick a giant screwdriver into the hole. I need both of my hands for that, so I'm gonna put the camera down for this part. All right, guys, so I managed to get the bolt snaked into this loop here. Honestly, I needed to jack up the axle for some reason, and when I jacked it up, the holes lined up perfectly fine. So then I went ahead and put the flag bolt in. I needed to pry with a breaker bar. I went ahead and I pried on the springs a little bit just to give me enough clearance for me to snake the bolt through and in to the bracket. So this side is all set. I'm gonna go ahead and put the nut, and then we're gonna go ahead and torque it down. All right, guys, so I went ahead and I snuggled up the bolt and nut. Now I couldn't find the exact like torque spec for these two fasteners, so I'm gonna torque them down between 70 and 80 foot-pounds. This bolt is pretty thick, so I think it should be able to handle 70 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that on both sides, and we should be done with this. All right, guys, and there you go. This is a simple how-to video on how to replace the track bar on these Jeep Commander. Also, it applies to the Jeep Grand Cherokee, the WK. So if you like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. All right, guys, take care. Bye-bye.